Shalom and welcome, all my brothers and sisters. In this three-part video series, I hope that this will be very helpful. I hope you watch all three. This is the first of three. I hope that these videos will be helpful in helping you understand very clearly why the Jewish people have always rejected the claim that Jesus was the Messiah, not because we were rejecting or have anything against the character of Jesus in any way, shape, or form, but because the scripture does not support the claims made in the Christian Bible. So I hope that this video will be helpful. I hope you'll search the scriptures to see for yourself and also to move forward in your journey to getting to know what God really is speaking about in the scriptures and what he really wants and what the Messianic age will bring. So, let's get a clear definition from the Hebrew scriptures of the true meaning of what the Messiah is and what the Messianic age should be. First, let's look at the category of the ingathering of the Jewish exiles. One thing that the Hebrew scriptures mentions many times about the Messianic age is the ingathering of the lost tribes to Judah, to the Jewish people. All the lost tribes coming together with Judah, coming and reuniting once again. We find this, for example, in Jeremiah chapter 30. We're going to be reading specifically verse 3. It says, "For behold, the days are coming, says Yehovah, when I will return the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith Yehovah. And I will return them to the land that I gave their forefathers, and they will possess it." Now we find other passages that speak about this ingathering. If you want to get a pen and paper, pause this and write these down. You could find more examples of this in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 3, Isaiah chapter 11, verses 11 through 12, then Isaiah chapter 43, verses 5 through 6, Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 18, Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 37, Ezekiel chapter 11, verse 17, chapter 34 of Ezekiel, verse 13, and then Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 24. Also, Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 21, etc., etc. There are many other passages. If you study Tanakh in general, you will know about this more. So studying is most crucial. Number 2, the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. One of the favorites. People scoff at this. They make fun of this. They say, "Where's your temple?" Well, the problem is that the Hebrew scriptures speaks clearly and consistently about the rebuilding of the final temple. For example, Isaiah chapter 2, verses 2 through 3. "It will happen in the end of days that the mountain of the temple of Yehovah will be firmly established as the head of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all the nations will stream to it." This is in the end of time, in the real Messianic age. "Many peoples," that means all the nations of the world, the righteous that will survive, will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yehovah, to the temple of the God of Jacob." Other examples of this final temple will be in Isaiah chapter 56, verses 6 through 7, Isaiah chapter 60, verse 7, Isaiah chapter 66, verse 20. In Ezekiel chapters 40, the whole chapters of chapter 40 through 44. Entire chapters. Also in Malachi chapter 3, verse 4. You can also find descriptions of this in Zechariah chapter 14, verses 20 through 21, etc., etc. Again, study of the Hebrew scriptures. You will find more verification for the final temple. Number 3, the observance of the Torah. Ezekiel chapter 11, verses 19 through 20 says, "I will give them an undivided heart, and I will place my new spirit in them. I will remove the heart of stone from their flesh and give them a heart of flesh, so that they may walk in my decrees and observe my laws and do them." You can also find consistency about what I'm saying here as far as observance of the Torah in the Messianic age In Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 8 and 10. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 32. And Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 26 through 27, etc., etc. Number 4, the universal knowledge of Elohim, or God. This is not the God of the Christians or the God of the Muslims. This is speaking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yehovah. Him alone, universal. That means everyone will know about the true God of all creation, Yehovah. You can find this in, Zechariah chapter 14, verse 9. It says very clearly, and in those days, Yehovah will become king over all the earth. On that day, Yehovah will be one. His name shall be one. No other. Only his. Other examples of this. Also, for example, it says in Zechariah chapter 8, verse 23, it says, in the end of days, 10 men out of every nation will grab the clothing of a Jew and say, take us with you, for now we know that God is with you. When is this? In the Messianic age. That's when they'll know. Also, in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 16, Isaiah chapter 45, verse 23, Isaiah 66, verse 23, Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9, Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 33, also in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 23, and Psalms 86, verse 9. So I hope you write this down, pause this, write down all the verses if you really want to study this. Don't take my word for it. You can look it up and study yourselves. Number 5, a reign of universal peace throughout the earth. For example, Micah chapter 4, verses 3 through 4. He shall judge between many peoples, this is the Messiah, and shall arbitrate between strong nations far away. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. But they shall sit under their own vines, under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid. For the mouth of Yehovah of hosts has spoken. Also, this matches beautifully to Isaiah chapter 2. Read the entire chapter of Isaiah chapter 2. Same description. World peace, the ingathering of all the righteous of the nations coming together with Israel as one. Other examples of the universal peace. Hosea chapter 2, verse 20. Isaiah chapter 2, the whole chapter, like I said, but specifically verses 1 through 4. Isaiah chapter 32, verses 16 through 18. Chapter 60 of Isaiah, verse 18. Isaiah chapter 65, verse 25. And Zechariah chapter 14, verse 11. Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 9. On and on. Same description. Now, specifically, here's a few examples of the real Messiah during that time. And like I say in all my videos, the understanding of the Hebrew Scriptures and the focus of the Hebrew Scriptures, I always say this, but I want you to install this in your mind because this is what you must understand. The focus of the Hebrew Scriptures is not on the person of the Messiah, but on what the world will look like when he is here. There's only about a dozen passages about the Messiah, this Davidic king, who will rule during this Messianic age. But the focus is on the changes, the world changes that will happen when he is here. For example, here's an actual passages of the real Messiah. This is in Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 through 5. A staff shall emerge from the stump of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. And a shoot shall sprout from his roots. Now, I want to state one thing before I finish. The king of this king, Davidic king from the line of David, is often referred to as a branch. Many of the anointed and the kings and prophets were considered branches. Why is everybody referred to as a branch? For example, right here, branches, or in the picture, branches of a tree. Why is the Messiah depicted as a branch? So too the prophets, Moses, everybody's considered a branch. Because the tree is one with Elohim, connected to God, all part of his final purposes. This is why the tree is so significant in the Hebrew scriptures. It's a connection, and every part, every prophet, every holy person, even the future king to come, is all part of the branches of one tree. So it comes together beautifully. This is why the tree is mentioned so much and has so much importance in the Hebrew scriptures. Just wanted to point that out. So it will be from the stump of Jesse, father of David, and a shoot shall sprout from his roots. The Spirit of God will rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and might. Now listen carefully. For those who believe that Jesus is to be God, or is taught that Jesus or the Messiah should be God himself, it says, the spirit of knowledge and fear of God. And if that's not enough, verse 3, he will be filled with the fear of God. Now, does God fear anything? Does God fear anything? If he did, he would be schizophrenic. And that's not the case. God doesn't fear anything. So it's obvious from Isaiah chapter 11 that he is not God. He will be a judge. He will judge the poor with righteousness and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He will strike the wicked of the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be the belt around his loins, and faithfulness the girdle around his waist. In that time the wolf will live with the sheep, and the leper will lie down with the kid, and the calf. A lion's cub and a fatling will walk together, and a young child shall lead them all. A cow and a bear will graze with their young and will lie together, and the lion will eat straw like the cattle. A nursing child will play, a baby will play at a viper's hole, and a weaned child will put his hand on the adder's den. They will neither hurt nor destroy in all of my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of Yehovah as the waters covers the sea. Very clear that this did not happen 2,000 years ago. We are yet for these fulfillments to happen. This is during the time of the Messiah. Here we go, another one. Jeremiah chapter 23, verses 5 through 6. The days are coming, surely coming, says Yehovah, when I shall raise up for David a righteous branch, and he will reign as king, and deal wisely, and shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. In his days Judah will be safe, and Israel will dwell in security. This is the name by which he will be called. The Lord is our righteousness. Now, again, Christians will look at this and say, why does he have such an amazing name? The Lord is our righteousness. Obviously, he is the Lord. The answer is no. Many people in the Hebrew scriptures has holy names, or the name of God within their names. Many holy items have the name of God in it. Locations are called with the name of God. Does this mean that the temple is the name of God? That means the temple's God, we should worship the temple? Jerusalem is also called part of God's name. Do we worship Jerusalem? Of course not. We don't worship the prophets or Moses. So this argument becomes very weak when you realize in definition there is many locations, items, and prophets with the name of God. This does not mean that you worship them. Here's another example. Ezekiel chapter 37, one of my favorites. Probably the most detailed description of the Messiah and the Messianic age. Verses 24 through 28 of Ezekiel chapter 37, it says, my servant David, again the Messiah, will be king over them. They shall have one shepherd. They shall follow my ordinances, keep my decrees, and fulfill them. This means the Torah. They shall live in the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, in which your ancestors lived. They and their children and their children's children shall live there forever. My servant David, the Messiah, shall be their prince forever, and I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. I will bless them and multiply them, and I will set my sanctuary, my temple, in the midst of them forevermore. My dwelling place shall be with them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And then the nations of the world will know that I, Yehovah, do sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary, my temple, is among them forevermore. Other passages to speak about this Messianic age is in Ezekiel chapter 34, verses 23 through 30. Also in Hosea chapter 3, verses 4 through 5. In Zechariah chapter 9, verses 9 through 10. It's very, very clear and consistent. So here is a brief description. This is from the first video. This is the first of 3. It's very clear that the understanding of the Messiah, according to the Hebrew Scriptures, and what must be done during this age is very clear. Transformative world, a totally utopian world, a world of peace, togetherness, the building of the temple, the true Messiah coming, the gathering of the lost tribes with Judah. Lots of things must occur before anyone can claim to be the Messiah. Shalom and thank you. This is the first. I will be making the second next up. Shalom. Please subscribe also. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. I'll be posting many more videos. Shalom.